All right, hello, what's going on? Rich Ryan here from RMR Training. Today, we're going to talk about the three most important pieces to your Hyrox off-season. Before we get into that, I want you to take a look at our RMR Training app right now. In RMR Daily, we are focusing on a lot of the factors that we are going to speak about now, so you can get your off-season training taken care of for you within the RMR Training app. All right, let's get into it. Off-season training for Hyrox. So as we get into this, a lot of the research that's been done around this is based around block periodization. So block periodization is taking specific stimulus and putting it in blocks. So having 4 to 6 weeks of training at a time before switching stimulus. From the research, a chart has emerged from Isurin. So part of their research here is they took a bunch of different training protocols for different sports and they put it against each other to see how the results played out versus what the expectations were within the training block. And from that, they were able to take out some of the pieces and understand what stimulus would last for how long. So the first thing that I want you to really think about when considering your off-season training is what adaptations can you create in the off-season that will last into the regular season. So this is really important just so that you're not necessarily wasting your time and your fitness can continue to grow into that regular season, because different workouts are going to give you a different adaptation and the adaptations just don't last for forever. So when we take a look at this chart, the things that are going to last the most are going to be your aerobic endurance and your maximal strength. So those are really two elements that I think you should consider when building your off-season training. The thing with these adaptations is that they will also be able to be maintained throughout the actual peak training. And once you get into your training for the regular season, you'll be touching on these pieces either way, because Hyrox is a highly aerobic sport and a high strength sport. So the strength and aerobic capacity that you're building in the off season will allow you to have that throughout your full season, because you're going to be touching on those pieces the entire time. So the first thing that I do want to talk about here is your aerobic conditioning. For most of the athletes here in Hyrox, the aerobic piece is going to be the limiter. Hyrox really is a sport around your aerobic capacity. So being able to build that during the offseason is critical. For most Hyrox athletes, I would lean people toward running here. So when we're talking about aerobic capacity, what we're talking about is kind of that zone 2, zone 3 efforts, dipping into some zone 4 from time to time, just to kind of stay sharp on the different stimulus. But with your aerobic conditioning, the main thing that's going to help this progress and improve is time doing the actual aerobic activity. So once you start to get into the actual training season, you're going to be limited on how much time you have to spending on your just building your aerobic base, because you'll need to do very specific workouts. They're going to take you a little bit beyond, and they're going to be so intense that you're going to need to spend more time recovering. So you won't have as much time in your training sessions and your training weeks to really get to the point where you can stack and continue to stack volume on top of itself. But during the off season, you have plenty of time, because you shouldn't be doing super hard, super aggressive Hyrox workouts that are going to take time away from your ability to do more work because you need to recover, or you're limited in the work that you're able to do within a session because the intensity is so high that muscularly and aerobically you can only hold up so much. So aerobic training is really a smart way to spend your time, and slowly building on top of each other each week so that you get to a bigger capacity. And these adaptations are going to last on its own between 35 and 25 days. And you're going to be maintaining that throughout. So these adaptations will absolutely come into huge play for you when it comes to your next season. So the second area of development I would push people toward during the off season is maximal strength or hypertrophy. So maximal strength is going to be working in those rep ranges below 5 reps, really building the ability to move a lot of weight. If you are already a size that is going to be advantageous for Hyrox, then you shouldn't necessarily need to worry about hypertrophy very much. Hypertrophy is the response to try to put on muscle mass. So if you already have a lot of muscle mass on you coming from some sort of strength sport, I would recommend working in the lower than 5 rep range or really overloading your Hyrox work. So doing a heavier wall ball, now's the time for that. Pushing an extremely heavy sled, pulling an extremely heavy sled, heavier lunges, all these pieces that are going to be less sport specific and is going to help your high end strength for Hyrox. Now is the time to really work on those areas. If you are someone who's coming from more of an endurance background or maybe not any type of strength background at all, working on hypertrophy is a really smart way to use your time. Putting on some muscle mass, because in the sport, mass moves mass. If you are putting on muscle mass concurrently while doing aerobic training, which you should be doing both, you will still be able to stay fast and be able to move that muscle mass that you're gaining. A lot of times people are worried that if they put on muscle mass, they'll slow down. This is true if you're not going to do any aerobic work or running. So it's less about doing different work. It's more about not doing the work that's going to get you the aerobic and running gains. So you can put on muscle mass while you are training for Hyrox. These workouts are really going to be in that 8 to 15 rep range. If you want to be super effective in your hypertrophy training, focusing on the eccentrics and really getting a big stretch in the muscle that you are trying to grow is going to be the piece that you want to focus on the most. Less about how much weight and more about how much stretch you can get into that muscle belly. And what that does, it creates a lot of damage. And once that damage is repaired, it's going to potentially improve the size of the muscle. You have to break it down first to build it back. A lot of times, if we're working really heavy, we can't do too many reps. So we're not going to create that much damage. So really kind of lightening the load and going in that 8, 12, 15 rep range and going slow on the eccentric. You can go fast on the concentric on the way up, but really getting that exaggerated stretch, which is another reason to reduce the weight. So you can get that really big stretch and still be able to lift the weight. So I'd highly recommend that you either work in that under 5 rep range to work on your max strength or work on hypertrophy. Both of those things will last into the season. And there's been studies both in endurance athletes like rowers and sport athletes like soccer players, football, who were put on an off-season protocol to improve their maximal like 1 rep max and their like standing broad jump, vertical jump, doing 2 to 3 strength sessions in the off-season, and then moved into a maintenance strength protocol during the regular season of just 1 time per week. And in both studies, they were able to maintain the gains that they had throughout. So once you have the strength gains and the muscle gains, especially, it's hard to lose them, especially training for something like Hyrox because we're still going to be doing strength stuff because the sport demands it. So those adaptations will absolutely last. The third piece that you should work on is going to be certainly more individualized for the person, and that is your mobility, your movement quality, spending time moving better, finding limiters and understanding how to improve them. Now, I can't really say what some of these protocols should be because each person is going to be different. There's going to be different limiters and there's going to be different ways for these athletes to improve, whether it is simply soft tissue tightness, like fascia tightness, whether it is joint mobility, not having the ability to move into specific positions, or if it's just simple like postural or being able or lifestyle stuff. There's a lot of factors that are going to play into the way that you move. But as you improve your movement, you will become more efficient in that movement, which is going to cost less energy, which is going to make you better at the sport itself. So this could be running form, this could be squat form, this could be lunge form, this could be rower ski form. Spending time now so that you're not having to drill and hammer these really hard workouts and just overloading yourself during the season. Now's the time to wire those patterns. If you can get yourself moving into a specific way and creating that muscle memory, that once you get fatigued, you won't have to worry about your form. Going into an event and thinking, I'm just going to have good form during this, and I haven't really practiced it. Once you're fatigued, you're not going to have the brain power to think about your form, and it will revert to the thing that you've done the most often. So now training to improve your movement quality so that when it comes to the actual event itself, you won't have to think about this stuff. You won't have to worry about moving into certain positions. You'll already have them locked in, and that's just the way that you move now. This is specifically important. It's important for everybody, but as you age and you go up in age group classification, the people who move the best are going to have a way better time just because it's going to help with recovery because you're going to be moving in a more advantageous position and you're going to just be more efficient. This, I think, should be the number one thing that you focus on. It's probably going to be more important than your strength and more important than your fitness because at a certain point, it's going to be the best mover out of those three different options. So I think this is really important. It's a great way to spend your time. So that's all for the three things that are going to help you improve your off season. Again, just make sure the training that you're doing will give you adaptations that will last into the actual season. So those three that we just talked about, strength, aerobic capacity, movement quality, those are the three things that will help you into the season. Doing the higher end stuff, race specific stuff, working on anaerobic conditioning, that can be done quickly and you can get fast adaptations from that, but they also go away quickly. So make sure that you're doing the work that will last. So if this video was helpful for you, hit me with a like, hit me with a subscribe, share it with some friends. Make sure you check out the RMR Training app where we will take care of all this training for you. We can give you all these blocks, different training programs within that, including a daily programming, which right now is off season, including a 12-week Hyrox program, including a 12-week DecaFit program. We have running specifically for Hyrox. A lot of great stuff in this app. Make sure you're taking a look at that, and we'll talk to you soon.